What's up guys, welcome to yet another video. In this video, we're going to be looking at our weekly outlook. Pegging off of what happened last week, we had some Fed news come out and as a result, we had the weakening of the dollar. A good rally on some USD pairs, Euro USD, GBP USD, AUD USD had a nice push to the upside. We also had the strengthening of the Japanese yen, hence a nice collapse of some of the yen pairs. USD JPY had a really serious melt to the downside, and GBP JPY was also affected with a nice melt, a nice push to the downside. We're currently squeezing at the top and at the bottom, but we're going to be looking at the technicals as we progress throughout the video. For now, let's look at the economic calendar as per usual, just to have a clear outlook of what exactly is expected or what we can anticipate throughout the week. As of Monday today, PMI news came out, positive for the dollar. Not too significant in a sense, as previous 53.3 with a prediction of 54. We are higher than 54 at 55.6. We had a nice push to the downside into some nice support zones that we could potentially see price react off of, but we'll get into the technicals of that pretty soon as we progress into the video. As of tomorrow, pretty quiet. We have Joel's job openings coming out for the dollar around 5 p.m. just after New York Open. But nothing too significant to look out for in terms of news from the Aussie dollar, the Japanese yen, or the euro. CAD is also pretty quiet, hence we're expecting some pretty good price action tomorrow. On Wednesday, NZD news employment change comes out quite early in the morning. This is about around Asia session, so nothing too crazy there. We might potentially wake up and see how price has reacted after that news. Japanese pairs, nothing too crazy for the Japanese yen as well. For the euro, services PMI coming out in France, Italy, and Spain. Nothing too crazy there. The German services PMI is also coming out tomorrow. So we'll see how the euro reacts to all those consecutive news releases coming out. But we don't anticipate anything heavy or significant to push out the markets. So we'll potentially just be looking at how the technicals look and look for potential setups and entries that we would take. During New York session, we have NF non-farm employment change. Nothing too crazy as well. Orange folder news. We might see some push. We also have PMI coming out tomorrow. Again, a lot of the moves happened last week. So for this week, we'll just be looking at potentially relying more on the technicals just to see what that looks like. This might also be a continuation or a reversal move in that sense. So we'll see what that looks like. Looking at the charts, we have seen some nice corrections into some previous support and resistance zones or supply and demand zones, and we'll see how that reacts tomorrow. In terms of Thursday, again, nothing too crazy. We have unemployment claims coming out at New York just before New York session for the dollar. In terms of euro, JPY, and the Aussie, nothing too crazy. I mean, again, it's quite a quiet week. So this week, a lot of technicals and a lot of price action is what we'll be relying on. On Friday, again, nothing for the Japanese yen. For the euro, also a bit quiet. British pound, a bit quiet as well. Swiss franc, also a bit quiet. However, on Friday, 3:30 p.m., just before New York Open, we do have Canadian employment change coming out and the employment rate coming out. So USD CAD traders will be on the lookout for that one. We do have hourly earnings, NF non-farm employment change also coming out on Friday, affecting the US dollar. But again, by this time, we should have already caught our move of the week, and kind of figured out where we're at. Friday might be a slow day. If I don't get any setups by London session, then I'll just be waiting out the rest of the day. Hopefully we can get our trades and hit our targets before the end of the week. Now, let's get into some of the more technical part of what we're doing of this video. So looking at Euro USD, again, this was last week, a nice consolidation. And then once that Fed news came out, the Fed meeting, we had a nice push to the upside. And then now we're just currently squeezing on this premium of this particular range. Potentially we might have hit that top. So we might be waiting to see how price reacts off of this zone right here. Around the 145 area is where I have my support, where I'd be looking for price to sort of react off of in terms of support, and then buyers step in and push price all the way to the upside. If we go on our daily chart here Again, we're still within this daily range, so that being the top and the bottom. So I'm anticipating for more potential upward pressure. We have been bearish for quite some time on EU, potentially for the past couple of weeks. If we can just zoom out, we can see that we have been pushing down. Nice price action to the downside. Could this be the bottom? Potentially. And we might now be in this corrective phase. We had a nice consolidation. So maybe now, since we've broken these previous lower highs or higher lows, maybe now it's the time to, we needed that catalyst from last week, and now might be the time to continue on to the upside. If this 145 level holds and we just keep pushing, then I'd continue buying throughout the rest of the week into this 162 levels, where we might be getting some resistance to come in. That's it for EU. Looking at GU more or less the same thing. We have been pushing to the downside quite nicely. If we was to just go into the weekly time frame right here, there we go, into the weekly time frame right there, that's the daily. From a weekly perspective, we did push. We have been corrective, coming all the way into these supply zones, right? So on the daily time frame, because we've been pushing higher, we had a nice push to the upside, and then sort of a rough range on the daily time frame. Intraday though, we have been bearish, and now we've seen a nice corrective push to the upside, where we might be looking for potential continuation buys. Since news came out yesterday and looked a bit and was weak for the dollar, so then we had that nice big rally. A corrective pullback is what has been happening throughout the whole of last week. We've been aiming or timing those buys, and we did get those buys. Nice push to the upside. We're currently stuck within the 135 and 134 range, and that's currently where we're at. What I'd be looking for price to do in this intraday, from an intraday perspective, is potentially respect these lows. If we can't respect these lows, then come deeper into this demand zones, and then potentially now look for those continuation buys. I'd love to continue buying with the buyers. The buyers might be coming in strong at this point in time, so we'd have to wait and see whether there's actually any potential to keep going. However, from a risk perspective, on an intraday perspective, depending on what Asia session does overnight, I'd love to get into those continuations to the upside. If we get a nice corrective pullback to these lows, maybe the 133,600 level, then maybe that would be the zone I'd be looking to get my buys. If price comes down aggressively, which again we don't have a big catalyst this week to do, then this would be my final line in the sand, where I'd be looking for those buys on an internal perspective, on an intraday perspective. However, we know that price could want to continue on to the downside. Would we be targeting any further lows? These would be those lows that we'd be targeting. However, I feel like we've already switched on up to the upside, so I'd love to see price continue going higher. If we look at the Aussie dollar, alright guys, before we get back into the video, now let me tell you this. Not everyone who wants to make money from the financial markets actually wants to become a full-time trader. Some people enjoy analyzing the charts all day, every day. Others just simply want their money working for them while they focus on their careers, their businesses, or their families. And that's why today's sponsor is a combination I think makes a lot of sense. PU Prime gives retail traders access to financial markets, including forex, gold, indices, commodities, and CFDs on stocks, all from one platform with fast execution and professional trading tools. So whether you're just starting out or already have experience, it's a broker designed to help you execute your trading strategy with confidence. If you don't have the time or the experience to trade yourself, you can explore copy trading through STL Consultancy. STL helps connect clients with carefully selected trading strategies and experienced traders, while also providing guidance on risk management and portfolio allocation. That means your capital can potentially participate in the markets without you needing to sit in front of the charts every single day. I've linked them both down below in the comment section and pinned them. Now let's get back to the video. Price did come back to a nice zone here that we'd been timing for quite some time. So as of last week, if you watched last week's video, we wanted to get buys from this zone right here, which we did come and test. We had some nice equal lows and liquidity sitting right there, and then price pushed on up to the upside with the weakening of the dollar and the Fed chair speech last week. So we've taken out these highs, nice push up, so we can know that liquidity has been taken, and potentially sellers might want to continue pushing price to the downside using all that liquidity. However, if this liquidity fails to come all the way to the downside and take out those lows, then we'll be looking for those reactions. We could get those buys temporarily and then see if we can actually get some continuations to the downside. In that sense, maybe targeting the 069 levels. 0695 is the support that I'm looking at, or the demand zone that I'm looking at for price to potentially react off of. That's kind of my POI. We have this nice higher high and higher low price action with a nice push to take out these lows, take out some liquidity, and then push on up to the upside. We have that nice break of structure. So then from an internal perspective, I'd be looking to see if we can get a continuation to the upside potentially. If not, get a nice deeper pullback, take out that strong liquidity that has caused this break of structure. If that is taken out, then I can nice drop down to my lower time frame and look for a nice reversal trade to the upside. Those are just some of the setups I like to take on a personal level. They're a bit of a high risk but high reward type of setup. Looking at USD CAD, we do have some Canadian news coming out later in the week. But before then, looking at our technicals, let's see what happened. We saw the dollar melt as of last week, right? A nice melt to the downside, slight correction and a continuation to the downside to get to that 1.4 level. Looking at the range, if this is the top of the range, that's the bottom of the range. So we've currently had a nice push to the downside, corrective pullback to our equilibrium maybe, just a slight peak into premium, and then nice push to the downside to take out these lows. We have taken out those lows. So again, after that break of structure to the downside, nice corrective pullback to our internal zones right there. So let me just clear these charts. Potential reaction off of there, I'd be looking to see Asia potentially push us slightly higher to the upside, then get that London push to the downside, maybe targeting these lows. That could be one trade idea. If we continue aggressively above this POI right here, I'd potentially want to see price continue on to the upside, maybe get us to this 1.41 level. I'd be looking for nice quick reaction scalps from this area here, from the 1.410 to the downside. That can be one setup. And then if price continues to give us an even deeper pullback, maybe, then this would be our next target to see price come all the way to the 142 level. We'd definitely be playing those buys just to get that as a target. However, we're waiting for confirmations and see who exactly is in control before we actually make any decisions on USD CAD. But currently, at this point in time, this is where we're at. Let's see what price has in store for us. There's some liquidity sitting up there. This could be our next immediate POI from an intraday perspective. See how price reacts over there. If we get confirmations, we might play that nice swing push to the downside, targeting these lows. USD Swiss, I think, yeah, same thing. We have been bullish on the internal, nice price action all the way to the top. We got to that 0.82 level. Release of news, nice weakening of the dollar all the way to the downside into deep demand right here. Nice pullback to the upside. We got some nice buys from that zone right there around the 0.0800, and then price aggressively pushed up to the upside. Currently where we're at, we are almost seated at the equilibrium of this range, with that being the high and this being the low. Again, we broke right through that, so pushing all the way onto the upside. If the dollar is to correct, we've been pushing above some of these previous support zones, so then we'd be looking to just continue buying to the upside as the dollar corrects itself, potentially targeting these highs at the 0.822 zone. That's currently kind of what I'd be looking at. If we, however, get a lot of resistance from these areas, I'd be looking for reactions. If we get nice reactions from those areas and price pushes on to the downside, where we see sellers stepping in and some exhaustion from the buyers, then once I get those confirmations, then we can potentially target these lows and then see if we can actually get back into a deeper demand and take out some previous week lows around the 0800 levels again. That's kind of it for USD Chef. Nothing too crazy here. In a sense, just nice and slow corrective price action. If we look at the Japanese pairs, looking at USD JPY, this is where the magic really happened. Some crazy stuff. Again, looking at last week's video, we saw that we've been breaking highs consistently, and our prediction was that if news comes out negative for the dollar, then if there's anything that would show a significant push to the downside, it is USD JPY, because it just moves like crazy. But also we've seen we had early in the month some serious weakening of the Japanese yen by the Bank of Japan, so hence that nice big rally to the upside by the US dollar. But then again, we've seen that the Japanese yen has been strengthening quite a bit as the US dollar weakens, so we've had this crazy insane swings in USD JPY. At this point in time, it's we'll see whether we can now continue getting that nice predictive corrective slow price action to the upside. That's kind of what we'd want to see. This price action reminds me of a boom index, in terms of just how it builds up nicely, then a nice crash, builds up again, then crashes, and that might be the next best thing in terms of price action. I don't know, we'll see. But this is some serious sellers. To the downside, we've broken past all these support zones at 161. We're currently at the 155 level down here. Strong internal. If that strong holds up, then potentially we might look to continue playing price to the upside, in a sense. If not, if we get, again, that's the range. If we get into our 50%, our equilibrium levels right there, of course, we'd be looking for potential sells towards the downside, in line with the big push that had happened last week. Yeah, just to get some nice quick selling scalps to the downside. I think there is potential for that, for price to react off of these previous nice POIs. GJ, again, also another big push to the downside last week. Again, strengthening of the Japanese yen is what is significant here. We had nice corrective, higher highs and higher lows, nice price action pushing all the way to the upside. We've taken out these previous lows, taken out those lows, we've taken out these lows right here. So a lot of liquidity buildup has happened with this significant push onto the downside. If we look at the daily chart and what that looks like, again, we've taken out a lot of significant liquidity from the previous price action. We tapped into that POI over there, so then we might be in a corrective phase potentially, since we've already had a nice melt to the downside. So then corrective, in terms of what I'd love to see if we're really in this corrective phase, is for price to now give us those confirmations and then keep holding support, whereby demand levels are holding and prices continuing on to the upside in a nice corrective fashion. Then I'd want to be involved in that push as we come towards our equilibrium level, again from the low to the high. This would be our first initial target from a weekly perspective, looking to potentially see price get to that 215 level for sure. And then if we get nice confirmations that we are moving to the downside, this would be our sell targets. If we don't get those confirmations and buyers are still strong and support is holding, demand zones are doing their job, then we'd be coming towards targeting those highs from a weekly target perspective. Done with the pairs. Looking at the Nasdaq, let's see. Nasdaq had a nice push to the downside. This is an older area where we wanted price to potentially come back. That's a 27,000 zone. We've currently now pushed on up to the upside since today is Monday and close of day is almost here. We have a nice push to the upside. So we've broken through this supply level right here and taken that out. So then for the Nasdaq buys look pretty interesting since we're seeing these big momentum candles just printing. Again, nice big momentum coming up from the downside from that 27,000 level onto the 28,000s. Potentially a target would be 29,000, and then we see if we can come towards these highs. We have some nice equal highs here around the 30k level in a sense. So Nasdaq, we know, pushes and pushes fast. This week might be an interesting week for the Nasdaq. So again, I'd be looking to see if our demand zones are holding, then just get involved in that push towards the upside on the Nasdaq. Weekly target potentially 30k on those highs and above potentially. That's kind of it for Nasdaq. Let's look at gold as we almost come to the end of the video. So gold, again, nothing too interesting has been happening. So if you look at this red line, we've been ranging quite a bit. Bit for the past couple of weeks. As we came closer to last week, we had a nice squeeze. Between the 4100 and the 4000 level. Again, 4100 acting as resistance and the 4000 level acting as support. So you can see buyers and sellers are fighting over here. No clear direction yet, but it would be interesting to see if we break below that 4000 level, then maybe target the 3980, 3900 levels, see how far the sellers can actually push the market. So then maybe this might be the setup. Maybe take up these previous lows, take some liquidity down here, and then now buyers step in and use all that liquidity to push the market to the upside, breaking support and demand holds, breaking support as demand holds, breaking support as demand holds, and maybe on a weekly outlook perspective, if the buyers step in aggressively, targeting above the 4100 levels, going all the way to 4200 might be an option. But however, at this point in time, nothing too crazy, no signs yet. We're just bouncing around this range, and that's kind of what I'd want to see. A breakout either below or above. We can catch some early entries on the lower time frames, of course, if we get our confirmations to sort of ride that wave either up or down. But for now, that is kind of it for gold, which is ranging on this higher time frame. No clear direction yet. Bitcoin, we had been looking for reactions of this support. Again, we had been in this channel for quite some time. A nice break to the downside, and then now we've been corrective, coming back to maybe that 6400 price level. Again, Bitcoin is not doing anything significant in terms of moves and price action, so it's just currently still within this range. We can see that we do have some nice higher highs and lower highs and lower lows, breaking internal structure. But in terms of the overall larger structure, in a sense, we are not moving anywhere. So then again, if I were you and you were trading Bitcoin, all I'd be doing is buying at the bottom of the channel and selling at the top of the channel for now, since we're just currently stuck between this range at 67,000 and the 62,000 range. Right guys, so that is it for this video. Nothing else to it. I think if you have enjoyed it, be on the lookout for my midweek analysis. Just to touch on price action from the first 3 days of the week. I'll be dropping that video on Wednesday, and then once we look at Wednesday, potentially look for any opportunities that we might be able to take advantage on Thursday or Friday before the end of the week. Until then guys, have a blue week. Cheers.